Well, hello, we're back. Last on the Brakes podcast is, well, technically still lockdown Last on the Brakes podcast because we're in the MotoGP bubble. It's just we're not coming to you anymore from Skype for this episode at least. We're in the media centre in the Circuito de Jerez Ángel Nieto, and we got some very special guests, not just via Skype. I'm actually sitting alongside my co-host Fran Wild, socially distanced with masks. Fran, I've not seen you, obviously, since in about 16 weeks, clearly. But how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, not doing too badly. Thank you very much. It is strange to be here. We were just saying beforehand, I think we're going to find it quite weird to relax now we're being filmed from so many angles.
Yeah.
Apologies if we don't manage it. So yeah, this week we have a very esteemed guest on the show, sitting with us here in Jerez, which is the managing director of Yamaha Motor Racing, Lin Jarvis. The man with the clearest gaze at the timing screens that we've ever seen, from the garage during a race weekend. But obviously, there's a much more to the man behind the team and behind that role in the paddock as well. And of course, there's a lot more to the job than simply turning up, I imagine, giving people instructions and then sitting back. It's a very hands-on, complex situation.
Exactly.
So running obviously one of the best sports teams in the world, not even just in MotoGP, with such incredible success over the past couple of decades. I think hopefully
We'll get to the bottom of it, Lynn. But I'll tell you what, one thing I do want to ask you, something to clear up, because coming into working in MotoGP a few years ago, I didn't know that you're a Brit because your accent's quite international. But then looking at your background, all the places you live, can you please clear it up for the viewers at home? You are a Brit, but your accent's come from all over now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's my accent is a mess, basically, and it's kind of neutral. I was born in London, so you can't get much British than that, I guess, or at least much more English than that. But I left the UK probably in 1983.
Wow.
So since 1983, I've been working and living overseas. So I worked in the Netherlands for 20 odd years. I don't remember exactly, 22 years. And now I've been in Italy for the last, since 2005. So 15 years in Italy and 22 or so in the Netherlands. So in that process, I've lost not only any accent that I had, British accent, but I've lost a lot of vocabulary because when you, when you're living abroad and working with foreigners all the time, in order to communicate, anyway, if you want to do it kind of easily for yourself, you have to do it a little bit more simple, and you have to make sure you don't have a weird accent that confuses people. So a lot of people, when they hear me for the first time, they think maybe I'm South African.
Yeah.
We saw one on Reddit as well, wondering if you were from somewhere, maybe South Africa or Australian tinged.
Zimbabwe.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a twang there because it's just a super flat accent, but that's all.
It's funny you mentioned that, and they get speaking simply. Well, you and I know that very well, don't we? Living in Barcelona and Spain.
Yeah.
It's especially, when you, I don't speak much Italian, I'm trying to learn now, but as soon as it's with the Italians, you really go into that mood of, okay, clear, simple words, because all you need to do is make yourself understood. You're not going to win some sort of Nobel Prize for Literature if you're trying to do that.
In fact, the biggest problem I have with my accent is when I do return back to where my family are, which is living in Kent, because they think I'm like some sort of alien. Because, please start speaking to us normally, and please use the accent, because they got quite a Kentish accent, and I have zero,
Brilliant.
Okay, so there we go. For the guys on Reddit who'd asked that we saw on Google the other day, British, although now international man of mystery.
Yeah.
So if we go back then to talk about you, obviously, like we said, you're such a key figure for Yamaha and especially the project within this paddock and in Europe as well, the European side of it. How did you end up where you are now?
Well, it's a long story. I would say a long story always in blue, because I've been with Yamaha for a long time, and I worked for Yamaha in the UK before I left to go to Europe. And I left the UK specifically because I wanted to work internationally. I had that drive and that desire to do that. So I went in '83 to Amsterdam and I got a job with Yamaha Europe. So over many years, I did many different roles there. And I started off with bicycles, believe it or not, which is a bit strange for Yamaha, but back in the day we had bicycles. And
Did they? I didn't know that.
yeah, we had what do you call them? BMX bikes.
Yeah.
And they were
Okay,
manufactured
cool.
in France.
Brilliant.
And so they kind of gave me that project to start with. And then that developed to being an area manager. So I was kind of area manager for regular products and motorcycle sales in Scandinavia. So my countries were Norway, Finland, the Netherlands, and Denmark. So area manager, then I was handling competition motorcycle sales. And then eventually, after doing lots of sales and marketing functions, I got responsibility for communications.
Right.
So I was in charge of marketing communications for all two-wheel products and for corporate communication. And also then that included racing. So, not long after I moved, I got involved. I was working in the racing division, and so I got responsible. I was made responsible probably in the mid-'80s for motocross, for the World Motocross Championship. And after that, I covered World Motocross, then I covered World Superbike, then I covered also Paris-Dakar. So many disciplines. And I was kind of touching on GP, but GP was handled by Japan, and I was working for Yamaha Europe. So I was involved in the times of Kenny Roberts and Wayne Rainey. I remember I used to go there as the timid guest that would try to get a pass and try to get in,
Brilliant.
And then there came a moment really back in 98, it was, when Yamaha decided they wanted to do something more important and come back to winning ways. And so they started a factory team. Wayne Rainey retired because he was managing a team. And then there was the Red Bull team. And they asked me if I was interested to head up a new project and start a new factory team.
Wow.
So I said, why not? And here I am.
Well, hearing the communications part, well, that makes total sense why. I've always found that your interviews have been some of the most considered. There's not one word which you don't consider before it comes out your mouth. So that's where that background comes from then, I guess.
Yeah, a little bit. In my world, you need to be pretty precise with what you say, because many things can be used and held against you. So you need to be quite considerate.
Just go for that neutral path as much as possible.
Like when we sat in the media centre, normally full of journalists, of course not here due to the medical protocol, all those guys there are looking to pick apart every single word you say and everything like that. Something that just, I'm just wondering then, listening to you about moving, that you really wanted to move abroad from the very beginning then. Because of course, we're working for Dawn and myself and Fran, we live in Spain and everything like that. How much of a big decision did you find that in your life? Because it's obviously a huge decision to leave everything behind to go work abroad. But I found in my personal case, everything happened so fast, I didn't really get an opportunity to really think that over before and just get on with it. And then you kind of you don't have time to process it ever, almost.
Yeah.
How was that in your case?
A little different, I guess. I'd been working already for 6 years, I guess, in the UK and travelled extensively in the UK. And it was in the years of the Thatcher years. And that was as much motivation as I needed. So honestly, honestly, it's like that. So I got angry at the way, or frustrated at the attitude and the way that the country was being governed. So I wanted to branch out and go overseas, and I then I did 2 attempts. The first one failed miserably.
Right.
And I'll always remember, because I quit my job. I had a good job in the UK, and I just said, anyway, it's time. It's time for me to go. I've done it. I wanna get another job somewhere else. So I bought a car with the steering wheel on the wrong side.
Yeah.
It was a pretty scary car. If I think back at it now, it's kind of a little embarrassing maybe. But anyway, I put my worldly possessions inside the car, which was not a lot because they all fitted in the back seat. I put my bicycle on the top, and I headed off through Europe. And the idea was to firstly travel a little bit by myself, and then try to find some sort of employment, any sort of employment, in order to pick up on languages and to try to live overseas. And one of the things I'll remember particular, there were a few things. That was, that must have been back, 82, that would have been.
Wow.
And I thought I got to the Vatican. That was as far south as I got, was the Vatican in Rome.
It's pretty far.
And I left my car outside with all my worldly possessions right outside the Vatican.
No.
And I thought, it'll be okay here, you know. And sure enough, I was out for 2 hours or so, and I came back and my car was broken into and they'd taken everything. So that was probably kind of the shocking low point. You parked in a place that you kind of thought you might be protected from up there, and it wasn't to be. And anyway, I continued, and I looked for jobs in Italy. I looked for jobs in France. Went through the motions, didn't work out, and I went back to the UK. And then I kind of picked up from there, and there's still the desire to go was still there. And I said, you know what? When I left the Yamaha UK, they called me from Amsterdam and they said, anyway, we're sorry to see you go. If you ever think of coming back, give us a call. So I did. I gave them a call. They invited me for an interview and I got the job. And that was the opportunity that I needed. And but, you know, if you hadn't made the first step, which failed, then I'd still probably be working in the UK doing something there. But I branched out, and finally I got lucky and got the job.
I feel slightly more normal now because that's basically what I did.
Ah, yeah?
Put all my stuff in the car,
Yeah.
moved to Barcelona via Misano because I went to the race on the way. And yeah, just done with this. Bye, guys. I'm going to try and find something. Luckily, I didn't get robbed in the Vatican. But that's cool. That's
you had a
interesting.
brush in though. It was
I
a
did,
robbery type
yes.
thing, didn't you?
I did in Barcelona, sadly. But
Yeah.
that wasn't at the same time though, so it's
No.
not technically part of the stressful movie.
Can't imagine that. That's a extraordinary story though, actually. I didn't know about you.
Of all the
There you go.
places to get robbed as well.
Yeah,
It's
you know,
like
it's the
the
one
worst.
place I thought I might be under supervision, but apparently not. So that's life.
Well, so okay, well that's pretty cool then. But what about your passion for bikes? Because it's all right saying, well, I've been with Yamaha forever, but especially in the UK,
Yeah.
it's something not countercultural, but it's certainly something a little bit more out of the ordinary for a lot of people to be interested in motorcycles and motorcycle racing.
Maybe now it's like that, but back when I was young, I think it was a little bit more normal and a little bit more mainstream
interesting.
motorcycling, even from a young
The Barry
age.
Sheen effect and
Yeah,
that kind
you know,
of.
Barry Sheen, of course, was a big hero at that time, and I even had some contact with him. When I was working with Yamaha UK, I wasn't responsible at all. I was just a rookie, just a junior, but Barry was a Yamaha rider for the Akai Yamaha team at that time. But even in the UK, I was also running the motocross program and stuff like that. But my real roots came from my father. My father was involved in trials. And so I started riding a trials bike when I was 15 and started doing competition. And then when I was 18, I got this job in Yamaha UK, which was literally a job opening parts packages at the time.
Really?
You know, I was involved in the warranty claims department.
You start from the
And,
very,
you-
very
You're
yeah,
bottom
an
there.
from the
amazing
beginning,
fairy
but,
tale example from literally just opening packages to the king of the whole project on this side of the world. It's quite a trajectory, that is.
Yeah, anyway, if you do what you love doing and it's something you're passionate about, motivated, and you take the opportunities that come your way, then you can go quite far, I think, in life.
Yeah, that's completely right. And so the trials thing, I mean, as slow as you can get on a bike, basically, the slower
I'm still
the
slow
better.
as well, trust me.
No, but I've seen all these photos from you over the years, all these different riding experiences.
Yeah.
You've been to the ranch and things like that.
Sure.
Like, so you know, how did those trial skills help you out with, you know, learning all these other disciplines too? Because I guess you wouldn't bother going around Rossi's ranch on a flat track bike if you didn't think you were capable. Or is that how you haven't been over the last couple of years? I don't know.
What's weird is actually I ride more today than I did when I was young,
Really?
I think. And so I have in the garage at home a few bikes. I have a trials bike. I have 2 enduro bikes, motocross bike, track bike. So whenever I find the opportunity, and luckily working in this world, the opportunities do arise if you're there and you take them. So yeah, I like to ride. You know, I'm not particularly good, or I'm not particularly fast, but I'm more or less capable whatever I do. You know, like this, I'm average at kind of just about.
I feel like there's that
Everything,
sweet
man.
spot where you're capable enough to enjoy it fully. and you're not out there trying to impress anyone or set any records,
so
but you're able to.
I'm not trying to impress anybody except myself, and so even now I ride enduro motocross trials and on Mugello, Misano, and Silverstone, wherever I can.
So what is your coolest riding experience you've had then? Because I guess you've ridden with all the riders that you've had under your employment. That's weird to say, isn't it?
Yeah, but my coolest riding experience would have been maybe it would have been even in the 90s, I guess. And when I was responsible for the promotion and marketing of Yamaha products for European-wise, we organized something called the Spirit of Adventure. And the Spirit of Adventure, we would take 70 customers, real customers of these big Super Tenere, it was called, and we would take 70 guys from many different countries. We take them and their bike to some exotic location, and we would organize a big adventure raid tour.
Wow.
And I was fortunate to be responsible for that whole project. So I rode through the Australian outback with 69 other crazy Europeans, and I rode in Mexico, and I rode in Egypt, and I rode in other places, and that's fabulous, being out there in the wild open, discovering new things, being with like-minded people, and awesome, absolutely awesome.
Back when marketing budgets were a bit more extensive than they are
exactly.
these days.
It was a different time, and they were fabulous experiences. Yeah.
Brilliant.
That sounds pretty amazing. So, like we said, then you get the call from Yamaha Amsterdam, or rather, you call them, get the job. Then, of course, you moved to Italy in 2005, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, round about the beginning of the Valentino era as well, just after then.
Yeah.
What's that change like, having lived so long in the Netherlands and then going to Italy, moving all the base of operations there? I guess that's kind of the inception of what you consider to be the project now.
Very much so. Now, we started, this new chapter, or this current chapter, I can say, of my life started in 99 when we began the factory team. Because I stayed in the Netherlands, and we had a workshop still in the Netherlands, and we began the company, and very, very small. We were 2 or 3 people plus the team, contracted staff. But then from 99 until 2003, we were moderately successful. We started as the Mulberry Yamaha team with Max Biaggi and Carlos Checa. We achieved 2nd place in the World Championship, 3rd place, but we didn't take the win, and then in 2003, we were in our lowest point where we didn't win a single race. And that's when the management of Yamaha Japan basically stepped in and said, either we step up or we should get out, And so we took this big sort of leap of faith, and fortunately, we were able to take Valentino Rossi on board as a rider. And that was a game changer. And so that game changer led to many things. And one of the things it led to was step by step, we've been moving our operations out of the Netherlands into Italy, because Italy is the first or second center of racing, because many suppliers are there, manpower is there, passion is there, manufacturers are there. So it was logic to be based much more in Southern Europe than it was to be based in the Netherlands. So we'd done many things, but then, of course, Rossi's success in 2004, when he joined us and won the championship, was really a spur and a motivation. You know what? MotoGP is really important. We need to be totally focused. And so we changed the company, and we decided we'll close Yamaha Racing in the Netherlands, and we'll start a new Yamaha Racing in Italy, totally focused to MotoGP. And so I made the move together with my family, and it was, should we say, another chapter, a further sub-chapter. And honestly, it's been great. It's been really good. I really like to live in Italy, and as a place to base a MotoGP team, it's perfect.
That's really cool. And something I wanted to pick up from there is about how you guys decided then at that time, MotoGP is such a big deal. It's really big, because that when we had Chad Reed on, he was saying how that 2003 to 2006-07 era was the time when he felt the motorcycle racing was like really important in global culture. Yeah. Would you say that same sort of thing? And what do you find there was sort of any trigger in that? Was Rossi's first years and that, was that part of trigger? What's your take?
I mean, I would say for us there were 2 different stages in that. The first really important stage was the switch to 4 strokes. Because when we were racing 99 to maybe 2000, maybe 2001, I don't remember so well, but it was two-stroke. And that was great. Racing was great. It was exciting, but no relevance to the business. By that time, the business has already switched to four-stroke. So it's like we had this racing department, but nobody really knew what they did or why they did it. And anyway, let's continue doing. But it was a bit isolated. And when we made the shift to four-stroke in 2000 and whatever, 2 or so, or 2001, it made the technology relevant for the company again. So this automatically meant that our investments in the sport were giving more returns to the products that we were selling and so forth. That's the first thing. But then I would say the second thing at that stage for us, talking about Yamaha, was when we had Valentino join us and he was able to win that championship in the first year, we got that confidence came back and that we can do factor. And Valentino Rossi back in that time was really at the height of his popularity. He's still popular now, but then he was winning everything. So to be engaged and to be involved, the motorcycle business was quite strong. And it became a global sport also due to Dorna, because the Dorna did a great job over the last 25 years to develop the sport and to internationalize it.
We've not asked him to say that, don't worry.
No, they didn't ask me to say that, but it's true, because...
Just passing the check on the healing.
If you go back to the 90s and you compare to now, the reality is that it is truly a major global sport, and it has relevance. Our biggest number of fans are in Indonesia. They're not in Italy or in Spain. They're in Indonesia, they're in Thailand, they're in Philippines and so forth. And this is a fact. And so it is now, the MotoGP world is so relevant to our business and so important for our company. And that means we've been able to keep the investment going. That means the top management are on board. So, it's that whole, everything kind of working together. And for us, becoming successful again was so important.
Okay, well, that's interesting because it is, I think a lot of people tend to see it almost as purely a marketing exercise. Like you want the brand to win and full stop. But there is also that other side of the development, and that you do get that return there as well in the stuff that you kind of create here, and you can show that your products are so world leading.
I mean, it is really important. And if you look now at, you see, the products that our guys go out and they're training on most of the time, because you can't train on a MotoGP bike because it's not allowed. So what do? They train on the R1M, on the R1. And the R1 is a very similar technology to what we're using here in terms of the layout of the engine is almost the same. The chassis development is benefiting from that. The electronics are developing from that. And also, this will make you smile, but it's a fact. The most efficient engine that Yamaha have in terms of horsepower for fuel is the M1. Because that's the bike that uses in the most efficient way performance and versus fuel. And so there are many things. Some are direct and some are less direct. But that investment is what convinces our management to keep investing.
That's good news for the future of the sport, obviously, and you're long into the future. Something which I wanted to ask you from them, because we have got some set questions of things which we've been reading about you, and we're very curious to know. You mentioned in an interview at one point how you deal with super experts every day. Every single individual in your company is one of the best in the world at what they could possibly do. How often, this is my own personal curiosity, how often, after all your years of being at the top, does someone do something in your company, whether it be in the communication department, marketing, or even just some of the engineers, and you go, bloody hell, how do you do that? Wow, every day's a school day. That sort of feeling. Does that still happen, or have you found at this point that you've basically seen it all and it's very uniform these days?
No, I don't think it's very uniform, especially the way that technology's moved on from now. I mean, even this sort of thing that we're doing now is something that we wouldn't have done a few years ago. Even this COVID story has accelerated our process of making, whether it be Zoom or Skype or Teams or I don't know how many different systems there are, but this is new technologies and new ways of communication. It's become much more fragmented than when I was responsible for communications, for instance. So this is a field that's always constantly advancing. Technology in the bike is always constantly advancing. Every time I see it in the garage, of course, I'm used to seeing the bikes, but if you just sit down there and you just take a good look at the bike, It is amazing. The technology of those bikes, it's phenomenal. And every year they improve. Every week and weekend they're trying to improve. We've got engineers in Italy and obviously a lot more in Japan. And if you see and hear the things, for me it's rocket science. I can't understand it, but it's constantly progressing, constantly moving. And my job is not to disturb what anybody's doing. That's why the next generation is there to keep moving on. My job is to try to keep the ship pointing in the right direction and make sure that on the key strategic decisions we're in the right way.
So for you then, it's definitely not the micromanaging. It's I'm the captain of the ship. Make sure everyone's getting us sailing where we need to be, but trust in their ability. And
that's what I would like to think that people think. But I'm sure if you ask some of my staff, they'll tell you, he's a bit of a pain sometimes because he'll pick me up on this or he'll pick me up on that. But I try my best to let them do what they do best. And honestly, most of the time, they are far more expert than I am in whatever they're doing. So no, I think so far it's working. So anyway,
I wonder. We're ever more fascinated to hear from the different people that actually listen to this podcast. I'm sure some people do listen in, especially when we speak to guys like you about some business know-how. But so how do you avoid micromanaging? Do you recognise when you do go into that stage, and do you pull yourself out of it? Think, don't need to tell that person how to do that, or what's your
really
scenario?
Struggle with this when I'm showing anyone what to do with anything.
Yeah, I'd say I struggle with it as well, honestly. I know I can be a real pain, but I guess probably I'm too busy. So I'm too busy to get over-engaged or over-involved in too many things, because this is kind of interesting and not interesting, but I had a major burnout. So I had a real burnout, a bad one, and I remained affected for 7 years by that.
Crikey.
And that was a burnout that was basically caused by spinning too many plates. So I got chronic fatigue syndrome, and that was back in 98.
Wow.
And I didn't get rid of it until 2004 or 5.
Probably when you needed then the most energy to deal with what was happening at the scene, right? Or something like that?
Yeah, actually, yes. And so, I know how I got it, because, I was one of these crazy guys that I was responsible for motorcycle communication, corporate communication, racing, this, that, every project. So I was running around in the office all the time, working from early in the morning to late at night, spinning plates. But I was also younger then, so I was into sport. So even on a Sunday, I would be working in the office, but in order to do my training, I would run from my house 10 kilometers to the office, work all day Sunday, and then I would run back again. So I got in my 20K or whatever. And
wow.
And finally, I always remember my wife told me, she said, anyway, you if you keep going like this, you're gonna, you can't manage this. You're gonna get sick. And no, it's okay, I can do it. But I crashed big time.
Wow.
Really big time. And I ended up, as I said, with this CFS, as it was called. And I'm very lucky, because I was one of the very few that get cured of it. But it took me 7 years. And so since then, I am aware of where my limit is. And so there's certain things when I say, you know what, it's okay. I've done my maximum, basta. Because it's very easy in this world. It's a non-stop world we're living in. Easy. And it's very easy to make that mistake. And so I'm always warning people, take a rest, or, don't do too much, or, do your max, but then just pay attention, because I made the mistake myself.
Okay, that's very interesting. I feel like that explains an awful lot of your later success after that as well. Because I feel like so many people in the world end up, maybe they don't always reach that point, but they spend so much of their life almost reaching that point and never get that realization or that wake-up call.
Yeah.
So
I think it's interesting that the biggest successes that you're known for have come after you've scaled back from being this, like, I guess the modern word is hustle. Back then you'd be like, I'm the king of hustle, this and that. But actually, your biggest success come back when after you've been through that burnout and scaled it back and actually learning to know when to call it quits. That's really interesting.
Yeah, maybe because when I took on board this job, the thing that I found it interesting was focus. It gave me a chance to focus. So instead of running around spinning 7 or 8 plates, I'd have a big one. It would be a little bit delicate, but it was one project, and I could see the result. So whatever I did on that project, good or bad, you could see your results straight away. And that gives more sort of like direct feedback, more satisfaction as well. But that said, I went through also, I can say, in 2002 and 3 major stress as well, I was fortunate, I think, and I always joking with Max himself about this, but I worked with Max Biaggi for 4 years, and after working with Max for 4 years, my conclusion was, well, if you can survive that, you can survive anything. So
that's a quote we just have to make clickbait from.
It's a baptism of fire, and now I have a good relationship with Max, and now he's a family man, he's a father, he has his kids and everything, so it's different now, but there's a lot of stress goes into this job as well, honestly, and so you have to stay calm.
That's very interesting. So, okay, we'll move more onto the racing then. We've just had that insight on Max. We won't push too far into the details of what exactly he put you through. I can imagine the number one thing that a lot of fans will want to ask you about is the obvious Rossi Lorenzo. We don't want to know, what dirt can you tell us on that? Now it's so much later. But more, what is that experience like for you being in control of that project when you have the brilliance of knowing you have possibly the 2 best or 2 of the best on the grid, and you also have to balance them together at the same time? How do you deal with that, with the personalities, and how hard it is when you're fighting yourselves for the same goal?
With delicacy, diplomacy, and difficulty is probably the 3 Ds I can say. It's the most, I would say, probably it's been the most rewarding time because, when they were together, we won 3 Triple Crowns, I think, and we won 4 championships with Vale, then 3 with Jorge, of which part of that time they were together. So I think we had 4 championships when they were together in the team. So it gave a lot of positivity and feedback, and but it was quite tough because anyway, any top athlete are very much focused on their own goals and their own objectives, and the last thing in their concern is what their teammate, whether he will achieve or not achieve. So you have to try to take care of each one as an individual, make sure that you're always fair in the treatment you give. That doesn't necessarily mean always equal on everything. We're equal in our philosophy towards our riders, but if this one wants that and the other one wants that, then you have to make sure that you split yourself. But there are some moments in that time when there's big egos in this sport as well, and you have to manage the rider's ego, the entourage, their expectation, their demand. Sometimes we couldn't deliver and fulfill. It's quite difficult, but if you ask me, I would always take 2 top riders instead of an A and a B. It's more.
We can already see that in next year, hey?
Yeah. I think next year's team should be a good team. This year's team is good, but next year's is going to be good. We're going to have 2 young guns in there that are both top level. So our desire is to try to come back into that sort of same winning era. That's what we try to do.
Back in those years, did you ever have, when it first started, 2008 or so, although I know obviously you would have known what was coming before then back in 2007, was there a point where you thought, how did anyone teach you how to deal with those two massive egos? Because like we mentioned in the intro, you're not just a team manager of a great motorcycle racing team and manufacturer. It's a sporting brand. You know, it's really high place. And those two guys, they are sporting legends, not just MotoGP legends of such. Did you feel that ready, prepared to deal with that kind of thing? Was there any point where you thought, I am not cut out for this? You know, what was your reaction there?
Yeah, no, it's something you grow into, and of course, the being involved in various disciplines of motorsport over the year, I came across a lot of characters, and I've had a lot of difficult jobs to do. You know, hiring is always the easiest, firing is always the most difficult. I've hired a lot of interesting and great riders. I've also fired a lot of interesting and great riders. So that whole process, you know, if you ask me what prepared me for that period, I would say all the 25 years leading up to it, dealing with amateur riders and junior riders, and then this type of rider, and, you know, multinational people, and you'll still always be surprised, you know, there's always a surprise around the corner, but it's something you kind of grow into. And these days, I have to say, while I'm still surprised frequently, at the same time, I'm accustomed to it. So, you know, I'm used to it. I'm waiting for something unexpected to happen, and I don't panic. And I think that if I told you I had back in probably in the early 2000s, I had a lot of stress at that time, and that's because I took everything so personally, and then it was more new to me. And so now, having years of experience and work with so many interesting riders and top riders, don't panic. You deal with it, understand it, try to find the best solution. You sometimes can't find the best solution, but it's very, very important to take your time and think well, and try not to get too stressed.
That's interesting.
Zens have been quite a long key topic on these podcasts, hasn't it? Really?
I've had a fairly stressful hour and a half before this, and I can genuinely feel myself just going, no, we're okay.
We've been talking with a few people, isn't it? It's been the case, right?
Yeah, it's a really seems to be very much top advice from some of the most successful in this paddock. So I would definitely say it's worth listening to. So talking about then riders that you've had already, obviously now you have. Well, first you had back again Valentino and Jorge, then Maverick joined the team, and then next year we're getting the Fabio Maverick super lineup of the young guns, like you said. What do you look for in those riders? Obviously, Fabio especially is a really interesting case, from extreme hype to some struggles, and then to the incredible job that he's done so far in the Premier class. What interests you about a rider? How involved are you in that process? Is it people coming to you with it, or is it you picking them out and saying, no, I want this guy on my bike?
Yeah, it's not, I'm not a genius at picking out young riders, I mean, I'm not somebody that can spot a kid at 13 and coming through, I would say there, if you talk about some people that are particularly good at that, maybe Alberto Puig is a good example of somebody that is technically sharp because he was an ex-rider, and he's brought up some young riders, successful ones and so forth. That's not my forte, that's not my skill. No, what I look for, we tend to look at the kind of the stage just before MotoGP, so we're talking about Moto2 level, and then in the early stage of MotoGP, obviously talented riders, fast riders, motivated riders, passionate riders. I mean, there are many, but the number that become to world champion is very, very few. And, Jorge was one of the good ones in that sense because, he was, when he was in that 250 class, as it was back in the day, then we signed him early because we could see it. He had that burning passion, desire to win. And that's, a lot of riders are very talented, a lot are very, very good, but few have that, plus alpha, that extra touch. And so really you look for that. I think that's what you're really looking for. And how do you quantify it? How do you identify it? It's difficult to say, but you can feel it, you can sense it. And I think in, the case of Maverick, I think he's got a great potential. If he can keep himself consistent and positive. You know, he's sometimes erratic, but very, very skilled, and you need to keep him in his zone. And if you can keep him in his sweet spot, he's got the capacity to win a world championship for sure. Maybe, you know, more than one as well. In the case of Fabio, as you said, he's had an interesting career up until now. Incredible success early on. Then he'd been through some rough times, and then he came into MotoGP by surprise. It surprised us as well. We supported the choice of the team. It was their decision to bring him in. But we said, yeah, why not? You know, nothing to lose. Let's give him a ride. I mean, he showed his talent back in the day. I remember meeting his earlier manager when he was probably 15 or 16, you know. So we were busy with that. But he came in last year, and you could see that it all clicked. Yeah. And you need many, many things to be aligned in order to win the World Championship. And Mark is in that situation now. You know, he's in his sweet spot. You know, he's perhaps the only guy that can really ride the Honda and extract the best performance out of it. He's incredibly fit and talented. He's incredibly motivated. And he's got all of his stars aligned for this period for him. But everything comes to an end. And our mission is to
accelerate the change.
The next ones to come into that zone and start to win again. And I believe that our two guys that we've taken on board, they have that potential. So.
Can I ask you then, in coming into the world of 2020 and obviously out of the lockdown and COVID situation we just had, we spoke a bit at the beginning how communications, marketing, it's just showing the world how important it still is, and it's even more important now than maybe ever before. Does the marketability of a rider, not just their result sheet, but how well you can place them in social media, video, specific content, this and that, and your broader marketing campaigns, does that ever come into it for a factory boss, or is that more something which you would leave to independent team riders? Is that something you're thinking about going forward?
I would say, honestly speaking, is it important to us? Yes. Is it decisive in making a decision? No. So for us, it's all about performance, and it's all about speed, and it's all about whether they can achieve the goal. Then in that process, if they are also good at social media, it's better. If they are less good at social media, then we'll try our best to educate them. You know, we have 5 people in our marketing communication team, so we take personal care of them. If we see they have weak spots, we'll try to improve them. Luckily, many of these young kids, they've grown up with social media now, and they're certainly more expert than I am, and a lot of them are pretty advanced in it, you know, and they express their characters through their social media as well, and I think that's important, and I think that's one of the beauties of motorcycling is. Maybe in some other worlds, you know, and Formula One was a little bit like that some years ago. It's getting better, but people are a little bit too much cloned, you know, and not showing their individual characters. And I think that's one of the beauties of MotoGP is you see the athlete expressing himself, whether it be on the bike or whether it be in the social media or in the press conference. I mean, if you talk of characters, you know, Valentino and Jorge are 2 great examples. Poles apart, you know, Valentino incredibly engaging with any public that he's with, entertaining on the bike. He was the one that brought fun into MotoGP back in the day. And then there's Jorge, who's the metronome, who's incredibly good with his performance on the bike. Also very active in the social media, but never afraid to say exactly what he thinks. You know,
but you enjoyed that a few times.
Result on the short term, you know, and that's. At the end of the day, that's good. It's a handful to deal with, but it's good because people should express themselves. I think it's important.
We had Maverick on this show during the lockdown, and we very much enjoyed how he seemed. Again, another one hit by the Zen bug. It seems in 2020. Yeah, seemed very chilled out and very open, and it was just a really nice conversation. Yeah, but I can imagine also for a rider, they have to answer such similar questions so many times and in a row for different outlets or to go to different places. So in that setting, it was really nice to just talk about, a bit about you, a bit about random stuff, you know, like, how are you doing, Maverick? And it's a really different kind of side. For sure, they enjoy
that much more if they can talk about things that are interesting in their life and what they do, and their attitude is much more interesting than, you know, the constant repeat to different broadcasters
Yeah.
of what about this, or what about Rossi, or what about this, or, that is pretty laborious work for them, honestly.
Same for you as well, I must. I'm guessing.
Yeah, sometimes, but I'm not as popular as they are, so they have much more engagement than
Tell you
me.
what,
Yeah.
actually, a funny story. Actually, my first real time that I ever actually saw you in the flesh was when you were at Goodwood Festival of Speed in 2015.
Yeah.
And it was really funny because obviously Valentino was coming there that day. He wasn't around at that point, but I saw around the part of the tent where they had his M1 lined up.
Yeah.
I saw a crowd of people,
Yeah.
but it wasn't that big, and I thought, Valentino's not there already. Surely if he was there, it'd be way more people. No, the big crowd of people was around you. And I thought, I think actually you might have a bigger crowd around you than Stoner at this point. But it was interesting. The people are interested in hearing about you. And
Well, that's part of, again, the benefit, I would say, of the way the sport's been publicized, marketized, and also social media also helps as well. Because it's a bit weird for me even as well. I mean, I'm always astonished actually that people even know who I am in India.
Yeah,
Indonesia, in Thailand. I mean, how do you know who I am? But sometimes you go, we have a group of Indian guests coming. They say, "Oh, Mr. Jarvis, really nice to see you." And I go like, how do they know what I do? So it's kind of weird, but that's TV factor for you.
and then you're
Yeah,
appearing
for
on
sure.
TikToks as well.
Yeah, that's a little bit more embarrassing. Yeah, that's a kind of.
That was amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Finally, I said, anyway.
I'm not a user of those kind of things too much. I take the more Danny Pedrosa side of social media, but I very much enjoy consuming other people's, at times, overshares.
Yeah. I didn't even know what
great.
TikTok was until afterwards,
And you thought, why have
we
I
kind of
done
got
this?
stuck there in this thing, and I had to. I said,
How many times that video of you guys doing that dance? How many takes were there? Just one.
Just one.
Okay.
Just
Well, that's not
one,
bad.
yeah.
It's
Good choreography.
true content as it's intended
Yeah,
to be.
so I said, just relax, let it go. It's okay. It's quite funny.
Brilliant.
Right.
I think we should.
I think we should, before we steal you the entirety of your Thursday.
Yeah.
Kenwood Quickfire. So basically, we are sponsored. The podcast is sponsored by Kenwood, who also supply the radios for the communications in the paddock for MotoGP guys. And we usually do word association or quickfire questions.
We've not done word
chosen-
association for months now.
We've chosen quickfire questions again because, I don't know, there's always seemed to be some good options for that.
Okay.
So, simple enough.
So short answer. You want a
Short answer.
You can
Most of them are
elaborate.
either or.
Okay.
Don't be scared of elaborating.
Okay. I'll give it my
But-
best shot.
Okay, shall I start?
Yeah, go for
Right,
it.
first things first, coffee or tea? Mr. Man who's lived in in Italy for a while.
Yeah, it's always a dilemma. There's always a dilemma because I really, it's really, I love both. So my wife will always laugh as well because she asks me, you want some coffee, you want tea? And I always look at my watch. It's really true. I look at my watch. I go, it's 11. 11 is still tea time. But then I'll have a coffee later. So I love both. But if you offer me only one, I'd probably go for an espresso.
Well then.
Okay, I would make that choice just for the fuel factor.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's just necessary. Okay, so what about your favourite place in the world?
Wow, that's a difficult one. Favorite place in the world? Well, I would say the place I've been to that earlier on when I was always looking for a place I'd like to live and something that would really capture me is, like having taken the decision to be international, I've always been looking for what could be home. And in terms of beauty and feeling, honestly, the area around South Africa, Cape Province, Stellenbosch area, for me is fantastic. The only thing against, because would be the political climate. So, but in terms of beauty and feeling, that was really good.
As we already know, the internet thinks you'd fit right in immediately.
Exactly. But if I think about, let's say, in our world as we are now, if you think about just this little thing, Mugello. Tuscany, Mugello, great place.
I think that ruins the next question.
Yeah, well, the next
really?
question
I'm
is,
sorry for
what's
that.
the best track on the calendar?
No doubt, no question. And, I like Misano as well, but honestly, if we had a double header in Mugello, I would be in my element and I would love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
All right,
it's so beautiful.
shall I do the next one then?
Yeah, go for it.
What's more stressful, a fight between two of your own riders for the win, or a fight with a different rider from a different manufacturer and one of your own?
Two of our own, without any doubt, because a fight with another one, anyway, we give it our best shot and we see what the consequences are. But a fight amongst your own two riders anyway has consequences.
Okay, easier one for next then. Do you like getting up early or having a lie-in? Not what do you do most, but which do you prefer? Early, really?
How early?
It depends. I'm kind of also well known for sending emails at 5 in the morning and 4:30 and so forth. So
checks off never working for Yamaha.
Yeah, I don't do it by choice, but I can't lay in. So once I'm awake, that's it. I got to get up. Doesn't matter what time it is.
Yeah.
What is your proudest achievement so far?
Yeah, I would say my proudest business achievement has to be the first championship in 2004 with Valentino, because that was significant for me. It was my first championship in MotoGP, and it was the bringing back the victory to the company, the brand, the team, and it was a great story with a great result. And in terms of personal life, I would say family life and having kids together with my wife has been also another, that's bigger than anything.
Wholesome answer.
Okay, I've got the really easy question again here. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No way.
I feel so alone. I am so pro pineapple on pizza.
Really?
I'm out.
Yeah, but it has to be a proper, well-made Italian pizza. Lots of tomato, not overly cheesed, but still I put the trash pineapple on.
You need to use my watch factor. Pineapple up till noon, pizza in the evening.
I did not know that.
You can't mix the two.
I'm gonna use that.
Okay, switching up again. What is the moment you learned the most from in MotoGP?
Yeah. I can't say there was a single moment. I would say it's just an accumulation of how to manage and resolve a number of problems over a period of time, because there's not one single moment. I can't say that. I think everything you learn in life, it's a process, and it's an accumulation. What prepared you for this? The 20 or 30 years before you got there, and that's what it is.
Nice.
Okay, that's cool. What about if you weren't here in MotoGP, nothing to do with bikes, what do you think you would be doing? I feel like I did most of these. I feel like I went too philosophical for the quickfire round. Sorry.
Yeah, it's difficult to give you a quick fire round. I mean, right now I'd rather be on a beach, frankly, or in the mountains. I love mountains, so I love to ski in the winter when I can, and even in the summer. So if you weren't here in this paddock right now, where would you rather be with this kind of summer thing? I'd rather be on the top of a mountain.
Okay.
Nice.
What about in career? Was there anything else that tempted you earlier?
Yeah, there've been some different things. But, I love what I'm doing. And so I've definitely sounded out some ideas and some opportunities along the way. But you'd have to be hard pushed to find a better job than the one I've got. So it's okay.
He's got blue blood.
Great quote.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a couple more then. What is one place in the world that you would really like to visit that you haven't yet?
Would really like to and haven't yet. Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one maybe, but I would say, and I don't know why I say it, but India.
Yeah? You're not been to India yet?
I've never been to India.
Wow.
I love Indian food.
Don't all Brits?
I've heard that it's a very difficult place to visit as well. I've heard that you're confronted with many, many things, but I think it's something that's so completely different to anything I've ever done. I think one time I must go to India, and there's no other place that I really think that. I mean, I've been very fortunate to travel extensively, not only with this job, but also I've been to Paris-Dakar, 2 times, 3 times, all through the Sahara Desert. I've been to Australia, and I've been many places, been fortunate. So I don't really think there's another place that really like is a burning desire, but India is some fascination that one day I should go and take a look.
Nice.
Okay, that's cool. So finally then, what's the best piece of advice you can give anyone who's listening now?
Yeah, I would say the best piece of advice I could give is, anyway, you should follow as much as you can, because it's not easy for everybody all of the time, but follow what you enjoy to do. Because if you enjoy doing something and you commit enough time to it and you try to go deeper and learn from it, you can probably master it and you can probably become successful. And if you can become successful doing something you enjoy to do, you're on the right way, you know. And so I think it's very important to not be told by other people what you should be doing. You should feel it inside, what's the area that interests you, and go down that path. And if you go down that path, maybe there'll be another diversion later. But you know, you've got to at least follow the path of where you think you should be going. But work hard, because nothing comes for nothing.
Brilliant. Well, what a great end to the Kenwood Quickfire that was. Coming for a man who started from the very, very bottom that you possibly could. At Yamaha, open up the parts boxes to the very top. Thank you very much for joining us, Lin. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Just we'll do a quick outro, shall we? Well, keep in touch with us. Use the hashtag MotoGP podcast on Twitter. Let us know who you want to see on the podcast over the coming weeks, because we'll still be producing them from the track, won't we? Skype's still an option. Lin, we'll have to get you back at some point, because I feel like there's plenty more stories that you can still tell us.
Call me back after we win the championship. I don't know when it will be. I hope it will be sooner rather than later. But then it will be a pleasure to come back.
Excellent.
Perfect.
Well, brilliant. See you. We'll see you next week. Well, in a couple of weeks. Whenever we'll see you guys.
But we will be back. Yeah, rest assured. And we normally give people things to look at on the the old YouTube after an episode. I would say this week, just look for some Yamaha highlights. You've got the first Rossi win in Welcome. There's some amazing races with Lorenzo as well. His first win was a bit of a history maker for you guys with him. The Silverstone 2013 duel against Marquez, that was also amazing. That dramatic day in Valencia where it was both of them going for the crown. Have a look through some Yamaha highlights for sure, because there's been some amazing performances, and hopefully some more coming up as well after we just had another win for you guys before we record this.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, everybody.